Namaste. Today we are going to explore self. As per Gurudev Sri Sri Ravi Shankar, self is the reference point. And then I set out on a journey to understand what is a reference point. So what is a reference? It is the basis of our understanding. We can only understand the relative in this world. Hence, because our intellect works at that level, it tries to analyze and then it tries to bifurcate and then divide and then try to understand, interpret. It's very hard for our intellect to understand the absolute. So what is a reference point? A reference point is against which we measure. It's relative. Now let's take an example of a number line. You know the number line, right? So on the number line, if I put some numbers, let's start with 0, for example, right? Now towards the right of the 0 at a unit distance you have 1, and further unit distance you have 2, and towards the left you have -1 and -2. So if there was no 0, so 0 is our reference point. If there was no 0, then there are no numbers, right? And if there are no numbers, without that you will be clueless, that how much wealth you have, or how much wealth you have to acquire, or how tall you are, or how much do you weigh, how far is the moon. We have no idea without the numbers. So do you see that a simple concept of a reference point, in this case 0, has done to the world of measurement and humankind. It was something discovered in India. Similarly, now let's draw a number line for some of your emotions. Let's take anger as -1. But for this -1, what is 0? You are angry with respect to something. What is that? Without reference, anger does not exist. So, for convenience, let's call it calmness, or let's call it peace, or let's call it a stable state of mind. And where are these located? So these are located in an area called as the self. So they take it for our understanding purpose. So same way we drew the line for the numbers, similarly here also we'll draw a 0. 0 for us is peace. If you go on the negative side of it, you get anger, more agitation, more nervous breakdowns, right? Towards the right, if you go of the 0, then you become more peaceful, then you become still, and then ultimately there is a state of silence, right? So if the self is your reference point, if you are becoming unnatural, then you go towards the material world, which is where your ego and your anger and your drives you, right? If you go towards your natural self, then you're exploring your inner world, your universe, the inner universe. So if this line makes sense to you, then we find that at the center of our universe is the self. So we keep swinging between the left and the right, the negative and the positive. So you may wonder that, why or how a self is a reference point. So let's take anger, for example. It's one of our... It requires others to validate itself. Now, if there is no you, then there is no I. Yeah? How much money I have with reference to you? How much money I have with reference to my goal of being a millionaire? Ego is always going out in the material world in search of a reference point. Once it is happy with acquiring some fame, wealth, recognition, it moves on to the next. That's how ego functions. What is it that ego really, searching for? And in this search, why does it tire you? Why does it exhaust you? Right? Have you ever felt or wondered about it? What is it that it is not able to find? Right? So now let's reverse the journey of this. What happens when the ego turns inwards? Not outwards, inwards. It looks at the self, the real reference point, and then it dissolves. It melts. That's what happens in meditation. Why? Because ego is humbled by the magnanimity of the self. Right? So far you were looking at the shadow, and suddenly you turn around and look at the light, and then you wonder, what is this? It's like you're walking through the jungle, you're lost in the wood, you're only looking down at the shrubs, trying to protect yourself from the thorny bushes, and suddenly at the turn you look up and you see the mighty Himalayan mountains. And then you are stuck. Wow, what is this? And what are the attributes of the self? It is peace. Peace is infinite. Happiness is infinite. Love is infinite. And therefore, self is peace, happiness, pure, unconditional love. And with reference to this, everything else tries to reach out for this. Everyone wants to be happy, and everyone wants to be peaceful. Everyone wants to be, love. But they are confused. So, how do you experience this reference point? How do you get hold of this true self, your true nature? For me, the Sudarshan Kriya from The Art of Living worked. Find out your way of finding yourself. Till then, bye-bye.